but I don't necessarily see real estate as this calling. It's something that we do to help people. But I think that's probably why I'm involved in things, right? That's why I was on the housing authority. That's why I'm on city council. That's why I ran for mayor, because I feel like there's more to give and there's more to more ways to serve my community.
Welcome back to the Missoula podcast. Happy Tuesday, or whenever you're listening to this episode. Excited to be back in the studio. Brandon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for this. This is our second returning guest. 100 plus episodes, 100. Mike Nugent back in, wearing a different hat this time.
Yep.
When you first came on the show, which I think was like we were like our top first 10 episodes.
I was just saying, you guys were
It was early.
new.
We had just launched.
Wasn't as fancy as what we got going on.
That's true.
now.
We were in a closet. You were in the middle of campaign for mayor.
Yep.
And thought, hey, let's bring Mike back and actually dive into Mike's story rather than all politics and the campaign. And I'm sure we can touch on that a little bit, but thanks for coming back.
No, thanks for having me. This is great. I love what you guys do. It's fun to just hear Missoulian stories and, connect with the community. I think it's a great service, honestly.
Well, thank you. There's a lot of
Thanks,
amazing people, amazing stories.
Yep.
First question for you, Mike. How does it feel to be done with campaigning? And walk us through what that is like for like the normal Missoulian that doesn't understand what a political campaign's like.
Yeah. So it's interesting. And I've done a few different in my life. So I just got reelected to the city council, and that was great. And I appreciate the Fine Folks Award for picking me 2-1. But, nothing like the mayor's race a couple of years ago. And the interesting thing about that mayor's race is obviously, Missoula picked Andrea, and we've become really good friends. We became friends during the campaign, and we work well together. And so I think because of that, I look back on that whole experience pretty positively, because we got out there, we had good conversations, and I got to know a lot of people in this town that I'd never met, even though I'm born and raised here. But being able to kind of take that and build that relationship to continue on and work together has been really rewarding. And I kind of wish that it could be a reminder for other people who might win or lose an election that there's another day on the other side of it. And you just
I'm sure there's a lot of life lessons from that campaign, winning or losing, that correlate with life and business. The adversity, the challenges, the highs and lows, the sleepless nights, and I would imagine at the end of that, as much as you wanted to win, there's probably a little bit of relief knowing it was over.
100%. And we actually joked, my wife and I would joke that there were wins in both outcomes because it was a lot. And for basically a year, I was at something every single night, so I was able to make sure that I was putting in time for my kids. But,
how do you balance that?
I'd leave the baseball game early to go to this community meeting on whatever. And council does that a little bit too, but post that election, I just made the decision I'm going to have better balance. And I think that I've achieved that, which is important.
What is it inside of you that wanted to go down that route of being mayor and just having a political career?
I said after we lost that mayor's race that the only way government works at any level is if good people are willing to get up and try. And sometimes that means you win, and sometimes that means you lose. But you can't do something that you believe in if you're afraid of losing, because you're not going to go all out.
Right.
And I try to be genuine to myself and stick with that. But, I'm born and raised here, and there's a lot of great Missoulians, but there's also a lot of challenges. And as much as, the comment section of the Missoulian might make it seem like this is easy, it's not. Very rarely are there black and white decisions in local government, because there are funding issues, and you have to decide with kind of similar pots of money how you're going to support all the needs of community, and you never can do it. And you've got to balance that with the fact that across Montana, property taxes are rising because home values are rising. Right. And there's so much that goes into
You're never going to please everyone.
No.
And every decision is so polarizing in today's.
Yeah, it's amazing how much people kind of look at things as these individual decisions in silos, but that is not how you can look at it if you're serving, because you have to understand all that goes into it and what the trade-offs are. what our resource, impacts are, and on and on and on.
Mike, you mentioned born and raised here.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the beginning, early childhood. Right. What part of town did you grow up in? What did your parents do for work? Where'd you go to elementary school?
So the interesting thing about representing Ward 4 on city council is that's where I grew up. My wife, Stacy, and I live around the corner from my parents.
That's almost like playing for like your favorite sports team as a kid. You grow up.
Yeah. And we didn't necessarily set out for that to be the goal, but it's just as we, bought houses and moved up and things like that, that's just where we ended up and wouldn't change it. So my kids are going to the same schools that I did. And I love that. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them kind of seeing them, chart their own course and have their own experiences, but I can kind of relate to it as mine. But my mom was a speech therapist from Missoula County Public Schools for 40 plus years.
Wow. And sorry, for those who aren't familiar with Ward 4, what part of town is that?
It's the kind of southern edge of town, Lewis and Clark, edge of Rose Park, the Far Views area. Perfect. Over to kind of bounces over to kind of where Coles is and cuts over there. So kind of that edge of town. Hillview Gotcha. Is the cutoff to Ward 5.
Southeast corner.
Yep.
Sorry. So your mom, speech therapist?
Speech therapist at Missoula County Public Schools, 40 plus years. She spent 20 plus of that working with preschoolers and, on their diagnostics team and working with kids with disabilities. And that really kind of shaped my life a little bit. She is one of 10, and her youngest brother, my Uncle Steve, had Down syndrome. And he would come stay with us in the summers because she had the summers off. And I think that just shaped a lot of how I view helping people.
Yeah.
It's like nobody can help their situation in some of the things they can't control, right? But we all have to take care of each other. We all have to help pick each other up and, make sure that we're getting a fair shot. And that's kind of shaped a little bit of why I want to be involved in the community, why I am involved in so many things. My dad was the city attorney for the city of Missoula for 44 years. And so a little bit of the, call to be involved in helping set the direction of our city, I think comes from just being around it as a kid and seeing it. And then his dad actually served on the Missoula City Council. So I'm a second generation, if you will, city council representative.
So Lewis and Clark, I'm guessing then you ended up at Washington,
then Sentinel High School. Yep.
As a kid, what did you see your future being, or what did you want to become? Did you think going the legal route and were you going to follow in your dad's footsteps, or do you have different dreams?
For a while I thought about going to law school, but then I got to college and finished a master's degree in public administration. And I was just so done with, reading and academics. But I now wish I had gone to law school, because a lot of what I do in my professional world is kind of legal adjacent. I handle a lot of that stuff for our firm across the state. And that kind of shapes it a little bit. But I think that, that call to service and to be involved, because like I said, both my parents serve the public their whole careers. And, I think that's important.
Did you go to the University of Montana?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
I don't know what gave it away. It's the Griz gear all the time, the podcast, whatever. Yeah.
I assumed, but I didn't want to assume too much. What was that experience like for you, staying in college in your hometown? What era were you going? I don't want to age you, but
so I turned 40 this year. So
okay.
Not too long ago, I don't think, but graduated Sentinel in 2003. I'm one of 5. I actually have an identical twin brother. And for a long time, I was the token Missoula kid. We joked about it because I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to the university, and I made a conscious effort that, I lived in the dorms, tried to make a lot of friends who weren't from around here and kind of bounce that with people I've known my whole life, so that it wasn't just, reliving high school and college or anything like that. And I think we did a pretty good job of that. I met my wife on campus. She's actually from Missoula too, but we did not know each other beforehand. So Stacy and I met on campus, and by that time the die was cast because she wanted to stay in Missoula. And so I, got my master's degree, and I worked for the university for a couple years in student affairs. I was the assistant director of residence life. I did student conduct, but I decided that wasn't for me. It was just too disassociated with what I think the kind of real world experience for most people is. And I wanted to jump into something else.
Mike, you and I are in like the same era. So I'm curious, do you remember exactly where you were 1995 national championship game?
I do. They screened it in the UC ballroom. And so it was giant screens in the UC ballroom and a ton of Griz fans. And I specifically remember when Larson made that kick, jumping into my dad's arms. Man, it was great. Yeah. And then I just remember town was crazy. And somehow all these stores had national championship sweatshirts.
Instantly, Universal Athletics in the mall.
So it's like, that night I remember going to the mall and getting, national championship sweatshirts. And I mean, it was great. That whole run was so much fun. I remember that was before we had season tickets. So we would just go to the games and sit in the grass end zones. You remember that? Yep. And
that's wild. It's funny how like those moments, like the nostalgia stick with you. Like the 70-14 Stephen F. Austin game.
Yep.
Was that the semifinal? Or quarterfinal maybe?
Quarterfinal.
I know exactly where I was standing in Costco watching it on a 70-inch rear lit TV as my parents shopped.
Yep.
But yeah, that era was so great, and how awesome to grow up here. And Stephen, you were in Dillon, so I don't know if you knew what was going on here. And
I had no idea.
The Mecca of FCS football.
Dillon's not a bad place. James had an all-star tournament in Dillon this summer, so we spent a handful of days there. But my brother-in-law's from Dillon.
You. So. Oh, there you go. Yeah, it's a great place. Great people. Now, Dillon used to be heavy Griz territory. Terry Thomas used to send all of his athletes up to the U of M. His two sons were safeties for the Griz. And then Troy Anderson screwed that up for us.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry on behalf of Dillon.
Well, but you could say that, the coaching staff of that era didn't do a good job recruiting him. So
that could have been it too.
Who knows?
Let's say that.
So you come out of college, the degree in, you said public administration?
So master's degree in public administration, degree in political science.
What was your first real job?
So my first real job was I worked at the university.
Okay.
Like I said, director of student conduct, assistant director of residence life. Which is under student affairs. But then I quickly kind of decided that wasn't for me. And I set out to never be anybody's boss ever again. And so I got into real estate. And what I learned really quickly was they had different plans for me. And within about 2 years, I was a sales manager. And I eventually became the vice president of what at the time was Prudential Montana, is now Berkshire Hathaway. And I've been doing that job ever since. We've got 18 offices across the state, a few hundred agents. We lead the state by sides, and helping people at some of the biggest moments of their life, both good and bad, has been rewarding. And a lot of people think that they don't understand all that goes into that profession, but if you do it right, you can really make a difference in people's lives. And that is one of the reasons that I actually decided to run for city council, because I was at that time, I was serving on just about every board adjacent to city council that you could. Mayor Engen had appointed me to the Missoula Housing Authority, because I recognized that Missoula has become an expensive place to live, and we needed to, and still need to, find ways to make sure that the people who work here can afford to live here. It's not all about, finding the most expensive house and selling it to somebody and all that. It's trying to help people find stability in their lives. And for most Americans, the only way they build any sort of financial security is owning a house.
Sure.
And I think we all know we'd love for that to not be true, for people to build diversity and security and wealth in all those different ways. But that's kind of a reality. And I wanted to and continue to want to make sure that we give people the opportunities to do that. And so I've done things like gone to state legislature and testified and helped change the laws to make community land trusts more plausible to build in the state of Montana. The Housing Authority does and manages a lot of Section 8 and permanently affordable housing. I was on the Housing Authority when we started the Villaggio project, which is the beautiful apartments at the end of Scott Street.
Oh, yeah.
And, there are pros and cons to that. They're huge, and I get that. But they also created 200 plus units for Missoulians who live and work here to live. And I think we got to keep that sort of project in mind, front and center.
Mike, why do you think that real estate made sense to you, your personality? Like, because I'm hearing your story and not seeing anything that lends to being in sales. Or
you want to know why? Because I hate sales. Yeah. I am not a cold caller. I'm never going to knock on your door and say, "Oh, buy that." Like I hate that. I like helping people, but the reason I went into real estate is my wife wanted to live in Missoula. I decided I didn't want to work at the university anymore, and you kind of probably remember this. Missoula 20 years ago didn't have the same professional job opportunities for kind of entry-level professionals, in my opinion. Most of what people did was you jumped into something like this or insurance or kind of financial advising. Yep. And there weren't the, ATGs of the world to the extent that they are now. I think over the last 20 years, Missoula has become a lot more diverse in the job opportunities. And I think we have a long way to go, but if I was making that switch from the university to something else today, I bet I'd have a completely different path.
Sure.
But the real estate was just like, hey, I need something to do. I know a lot of people. Let's give this a try.
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. Along with real estate, city council, you run some other businesses. You're involved in. Oh yeah, is that correct?
Yeah. So my wife and I are co-owners with her dad of Paradise Falls in Missoula. Okay. That's been their family business. Started at 35 years ago now, and my wife and I bought out her aunt about a decade ago. And so Stacy and Tom, my father-in-law, they run it, but Stacy and I are partners with.
So where did this? I mean, you got a mom who's working for the school system for her whole career. Yep. Your dad, who's an attorney working for the city. Where did this entrepreneurial spirit, I guess, where was that developed? And
I've always been someone that likes to try things, and there's, for better or worse, I always believe like, yeah, I can do that. We can figure out a way, and make it work. And if you work hard and you do the right things, you like to think it'd work out. And where I think it came from is I wanted to be able to be involved in a lot of things and make a life for my family that worked for us, provided flexibility to, follow my kids to the baseball tournament in Dillon if we've got time, or if that's what they do. And, kind of being multifaceted and being involved in businesses, doing real estate, it gave me the opportunity to control my time in some ways. I work, I don't want to humble brag or anything, but between all the things, I probably do 60 plus hours of work a week, right?
I would assume,
you'd have to.
Because they say city council is like less than 15 hours a week, which is laughable. I probably spend 30 to 35 hours a week between meetings and, getting back to constituents, returning phone calls, and then all of our other, work endeavors on top of that. So I think the entrepreneurial spirit just came from, I felt like I had this great base and this ability and a huge family history in unions and, pro labor and all these things. But I also wanted to see like, can we be the guy signing the front of the paycheck? Can we figure out how to do that? And I'm proud of where I'm at now, but I'm only 40. So I got
you've mentioned
several chapters left.
You mentioned your son who's middle school age now.
Yep.
Knowing what you know and how life has taken you post-college and looking back, do you want your son to follow in your footsteps? Do you want him, hey, go to University of Montana, come back and, hey, let's do real estate? Or do you see him, do you want him to stay away from politics and stay away from the private business sector?
It's funny because I have no problem with him in the private business sector. And if he wanted to do politics, I think he'd be going in eyes wide open. I don't want him to do real estate.
Yeah.
Mostly because that business is an up and down business and it's hard. But I think that if he ever wanted to, he'd be good at it. Yeah. I just don't take this the wrong way. I pour my heart and soul into helping my clients and to help the people in my office be successful, to help our agents, treat people well, make sure that we're always above board to solve problems. But I don't necessarily see real estate as this calling. It's something that we do to help people.
Right.
But I think that's probably why I'm involved in things, right? That's why I was on the housing authority. That's why I'm on city council. That's why I ran for mayor, because I feel like there's more to give and there's more more ways to serve my community.
Which makes sense. I heard someone recently say that our dads are the only people on the planet who want to see us surpass them, surpass their goals, their abilities, their sports records in high school, the accolades.
It won't be hard for James to surpass my sports records ever. I mean, poor kid. I didn't necessarily gift him with speed, but his mom's got some athleticism and he's got some of that. we had a middle school basketball game last night and he hit the game-winning free throw. So it's like, you gotta be proud of that.
That's awesome.
And then my daughter is in second grade and she's just getting into the sports world. And it's kind of fun to watch, right? They just kind of are figuring it out, and she's got Y basketball, and some of the girls really get it. And some of them are not quite there yet. And so it's fun to watch her, go from maybe that first or that second one to that first one there.
So awesome.
Yeah.
So fun. Let's hit pause. Go to our rapid fire questions. Does that work?
That's great.
Let's go.
All right, Mike, what was your first initial memory of Missoula, Montana?
Boy, that's a tough one. It probably honestly stems around church. We grew up going to Christ the King. It's a Catholic church over by the university. And that was kind of the sense of community when I was really young. And I remember a lot of that stuff. But there's also things like, the earlier versions of the Parade of Lights downtown and seeing Santa come in on Higgins and, going to the old Bon Marché, which was in the old Merck building and, things like that around Christmas. Griz sports are obviously a part of that. So just kind of, it all blends together. But, those things kind of shape those early childhood memories.
We're in that same era. I always think about Reserve Street, the 2-lane road.
Right. It was not anything.
Just went to Mullen.
Like,
isn't it amazing?
Yep.
That's awesome. Mike, what's your favorite coffee shop in Missoula?
I am partial to a couple of them in Ward 4 just because they're kind of like my offices. But Drum is where my wife and I often walk and get coffee on our morning walks when we can get away. And then Canby on Higgins is basically Mike Nugent's city council office. They probably know it too. So I meet a lot of constituents there.
Favorite restaurant?
Other
than Canby,
Paradise Falls is ours. So I'm going to throw that there. But take that out of the equation. I actually really am on a Mishi Ramen right now. I am a big fan of that place downtown. I think they do a good job. And at the time they opened, it really was not like something we had. I'm not a sushi guy, so I don't really go upstairs, but Mishi Ramen is my style.
What's the weirdest thing about Missoula to you?
The weirdest thing about Missoula. Interesting.
It's a great question for a guy on city council.
There are no weird things about Missoula. It's all great. No, I don't know. I don't know. That's
his
weird.
Answer is city council.
City council. The Missoula City Council could be Parks and Rec. I mean, like people
Can we
watch
get a documentary
show,
like that?
And it's like they didn't need writers. They just probably watch city council and they're like, oh, here we go. And the way people interact. People are passionate, but they come in and there's some interesting folks that come talk to us.
Yeah, I'm sure those chambers have some stories.
Oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
What do you love most about Missoula?
I love the people. I love that there are so many people who come and live in Missoula for so many different reasons. But part of that's because this community has built itself into being this wonderful place to live. Like we talk about growing up here and the things that were and weren't here, but then you look at what the community has done over the last 30 years, like Karis Park, Brennan's Wave, like all these things are because people who cared before us put the time and effort in to make it special. One of my first jobs ever was at a carousel from Missoula. And it's like, you just step back for a second and you think about the gift from the community that is. People spending thousands and thousands of hours carving horses out of wood
in the middle of the mall. Do you remember that? In the
middle of the mall, yeah.
That's where it started.
And I remember pennies for ponies. Like kids would bring pennies to school and they'd put them in buckets. And they raised enough money to sponsor 3 of the horses, I think, on the carousel. So I think just things like that. And then all the investment this community has made in open space over the years. That's been voter led. We've had 3 open space bonds over the last 3 decades. And all the mountainsides that are protected, all the trails on those,
Could we get a few more roundabouts?
Hey,
can you help with that?
Roundabouts move traffic better than stoplights. So in certain areas, I'm all for it.
It is. They're like a love-hate relationship.
I mean, my love-hate is that I hate that people don't take the time to learn how to do them correctly. Because if you did, you'd love them. You
can just cruise through.
Yeah. You just fly through. You don't have to stop.
True.
You just go.
That's true. We may know the answer to this based on Ward 4, but what zip code do you live in?
59801.
And final question, has there been a specific book that has made the biggest impact on your life?
Right now, the book I'm reading is the proposed Universal Development Code of the City of Missoula and code reform.
Sounds interesting.
Because that's like the major thing the city's been working on for the last 3 years and it's almost done. So I'm just like, I haven't had time to read a book in a year and a half. It feels like, I don't know, that's a tough question. When I do have time to read, it's usually for kind of enjoyment more than kind of inspiration, if that makes sense. But I'm also bad on the instant recall on this. So I'll probably, when we stop recording, be like, oh, of course, and have an answer for you. But I don't have a great one.
Why city council? Like, why run again? Why do you keep showing up? Like, what? You're busy. You got kids, young kids. You're coaching. You've got real estate, your clients. You've got PFALs. Like, why city council? Why take you on? Because 15 to 20 more hours a week.
I guess I think that I have something to give and to bring to that body that's underrepresented. And I have great colleagues. There's not a lot of people with private sector entrepreneurial business operation experience on city council. And historically, that's kind of been the case. There's a couple of us in different ways that bring that. I just think that that's important, but also kind of the housing experience. And I think, like I said, I've built a great relationship, become good friends with Mayor Davis. And between the two of us, I think we can speak to quite a bit of the housing experience of Missoulians. She's spent her career, doing permanently affordable housing.
Was she at Homeward, or what was her background? Yeah, that was her background.
Homeward. Right? And, I cross over to that on the housing authority, but also have been around a lot of, just market rate housing. And I just think that conversation at this time when Missoula, we don't have enough housing for the people who live and work here. And I think that having some of those voices that have been there helps be part of that. So I have more to give, I think. And that's why I want to keep being part of it for another 4 years.
What is something the general public doesn't know about serving on city council?
What does the general public not know about serving on city council? I think the general public interacts with city council when there's an issue that really catches their attention, or maybe something's moving in next to them they don't like. But very rarely do people kind of look at the big picture of all that city council does.
Right.
And it's like I was mentioning earlier, I think what people don't know is there are rarely black and white decisions.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about can we lower taxes? And if we do, what does that mean? What services are we pulling back? If we have a land use decision in front of us, what really is our decision space? And sometimes I think that some of the regular commenters at city council get annoyed by me because I try and take notes from the public comment and then respond to them when we have a chance and explain, well, we really don't have the space to do what you want us to do. Because a lot of people want to come in and say, you, city council, need to tell my neighbor who's a private landowner, no. And it's really, there's a whole, library full of case law at the Supreme Court, both at Montana and at the U.S. Supreme Court, that kind of governs how governments can make decisions on, regulating people's private property.
Sure.
And we have to follow the laws.
Yeah.
And sometimes people don't love that.
When there is time for the public to come in and speak to city council, is it majority of the time, is it complaints, frustration that city council is dealing with?
It's usually complaints and frustration about something that's going on. And there'll be frustration because people will say, you don't listen to us. And I will stand forever on people's right to give public comment. My mom's dad, my grandfather, was one of the Montanans that helped write our state constitution, which protects the right to participate. And I'm all for that. But what people sometimes don't realize is, if we have an issue and 13 people show up and give public comment, Missoula's got 76,000 residents, and we're all elected from the 6 different wards. We've kind of laid out our platforms and we represent everybody. So we have to balance public comment with other conversations we've had with other factors that we know with what the law is. And
so you're just hearing from the minority. I mean,
well, that's usually what public comment is. And they'll be like, well, you don't listen to the public. And I hate to say this, but just because you show up and give public comment doesn't mean you represent everybody. You represent yourself.
Makes sense.
Right.
And that's been an interesting thing to kind of experience and learn, because there have definitely been times where that room is packed and every piece of information that you have kind of says, this is the way we should vote. And then you've got a bunch of people who want you to vote a different way showing up, and you got to figure out how to do that.
But it also sounds like you have some repeat commenters that.
Oh yeah, there's some regulars. There's some regulars.
That's awesome.
And it's great. Like I said, more power to them. I do sometimes laugh because there's a couple regular commenters that come and say, "You never listen to us." And I'm thinking, we hear from you more than we hear from anybody in the community. It's just that you're conflating us not listening to you with you not necessarily getting your way on a certain issue. And that's not the same thing. And that's
they're defining listening as you siding with them.
Yeah. And I will say that sometimes serving the community, it surprises me the public's capability to be rude because you can disagree with me all the time. And I obviously ran for mayor and lost. I have thick skin, but some of the people on council are truly just, they're there because they're trying to make a difference. And they never in a million years thought that somebody would just come and be rude to them simply because they disagree. Yeah. Like disagree, say you disagree, but questioning people's motives and things like that.
You can still be kind.
Yeah, you can be kind. It's not expensive to be kind.
How often do you sit there and be like, wow, they do have a great point. There is another side to this. I mean,
often people make great points in public comment. Not all of them.
Sure.
But some of them are very thoughtful. They put in the research and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And usually that sort of public comment is best received early. Mm-hmm. If, there's a subdivision and it's been at the planning board and it's gone through our committee meeting process, and then you're showing up on the Monday night that we're supposed to vote, like that public comment is helpful. But if you've got a really, good point that you want considered, getting it in early, emailing us so that we can ask staff, like, hey, give me more background on this. Oh. I want to understand more. There are also a lot of people that come and give public comment that only hear what they want to hear. And so they'll give public comment that kind of, I think, misleads the public. And I think that's unfortunate. And we try and correct that sometimes because you need to have the full set of facts. And like I was talking about, like people kind of look at things only with the outcome that they want, and they don't necessarily have the whole picture. And we try and educate, but people have busy lives.
Your job would be a whole lot easier if there was no opportunity for public comment, or if our population was.
But that wouldn't be a democracy.
But that wouldn't be democracy.
Yep.
So do you wish there was more public comment? Do you wish more people in Missoula stood up, shared their opinion, voice? I mean,
I wish more people paid attention.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think or care if people don't want to come give public comment, because that can be intimidating. Sure. Come and speaking to the microphone and it's, being broadcast online. But I wish more people kind of paid attention and understood some of the decision making that has to happen. But I also recognize people have busy lives.
Sure.
There's a lot going on. And it's like, you work hard, you try and make enough money to pay your bills, you're raising your kids, you're dealing with your family stuff. And at the end of the day, people don't want to pay attention to that, which is why they elect people that they trust.
I'm going to take a little bit of a turn.
Please do. I got all the time in the world to talk about anything. So
I think
he only works 60, 70 hours a week. He's got time.
I think most of our audience knows that we pre-record these. And at the time of this recording, we're coming up on the biggest game of the year, Griz Cat, on Saturday. So I want to talk a little bit about how you're feeling about this year's team. Now this will come out afterwards. Yep. So your predictions may or may not find themselves accurate.
Well, I have a podcast, the Griz Fan Pod. I've already made my prediction, so people can go look for that. But
okay, walk us through it. What do you think? What do you think about the game?
What's interesting about this game is I think there's less trash talk this year. And I kind of wonder, it's the first time in the history of this game where both teams have come in undefeated, right? Which is crazy if you think about it. So this is for the outright Big Sky Conference Championship.
Maybe we're just disagreeing and being kind.
Well,
maybe it's happening.
Maybe it's happening. Or it's like both fan bases are confident in their team, but also like scared of the other team.
Yes.
And like, are they really good or are they like paper tigers? And so people are like hedging this. I don't actually know how it's going to go. I am nervous. I'm worried that the team from the other side of the divide might get it, but I think I could give you a million reasons why I think the Griz should win. So it's been fun, but I'll tell you, I appreciate the people who kind of mature in the rivalry and recognize that I can hate the Cats in the game, but turn around and appreciate that we get to experience something together as fans and as Montanans that a lot of people don't. There are very few rivalries at any level of sport that compare, right? You know, you think about like Auburn, Alabama, like that's a real one that the state feels and is passionate, but so many programs, even the big time ones, they don't have a rivalry like we do.
Right.
And it's for the bragging rights of the state. So that's a special thing to be a part of.
So what is your official prediction?
I did pick the Cats to win.
Did you?
Yeah. But
close one?
Close one. The other guys in the pod picked the Griz. We actually did a collab last night with a couple of our Cat fans who do a pod. And, you know, I'm the only guy that didn't pick the homer pick.
Did you feel dirty doing that, or?
Sometimes it's a superstition.
Yeah.
Makes sense. That's true.
So it's, you know, I found when I go into that game,
how awesome would it be to be wrong?
It's a bad thing. So it's like a hedge. But I definitely, I think this team is forming the foundation of something special for the next few years, which is so ironic to say when they're 11-0. But you look at, you know, Ayat's a sophomore and the talent on the offensive side of the ball. I think they are only going to get better in the next couple of years.
Wortham, unreal.
He's unreal. What a transfer. What a kid.
Yeah. What a kid. So has this been a fun football season for you, I assume, or have you been nervous the whole entire time?
You know, I haven't been nervous. And I think that part of that is because in my mind, we've got this year's great and we've got this future of the next couple of years that I think are going to be pretty good. It's like, let's go for a ride. And if this offense is firing, they'll beat the Cats. Like if this offense does what we've seen them do, they will beat the Cats. The question is if the Cats defense is good enough to stop them. And then how does our defense stop their offense? We'll see.
With your podcast, I know you guys are super active on Twitter or X. Have you been following Ryan Leaf the last week or so?
You know, we've been ignoring him this week because
have you, Stephen?
His act is stale.
Hilarious.
He's
what a clown.
He's a Cat fan, and you know he's a Montanan, you know,
right.
Yeah, and he's welcome to like whoever he wants. And I don't have a problem with that. For somebody who I think has gotten so much support, because one of our hosts on the Griz Fan Pod has interviewed him for a podcast, you know, so for somebody who's gotten so much support for his second chances from the community of Montana, to be so immature and childish about the rivalry is just, in my mind, it's a bad look. But you do you, man.
It's hilarious because he phrases his tweets in a way that people outside of Montana think he is like the CEO of SportsCenter or ESPN.
Like he's breaking news.
It's unreal. Like just the way he does it. But
he knows he's getting under the Griz fans.
He knows
skin.
what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing. Yeah.
What's been, how did your podcast come about? Podcast to podcast. And like, what has been your favorite parts about that?
So my buddy Luke Alford is one of my co-hosts, and we started it after a group of kind of other buddies that we know had been doing kind of like a Montana sports thing the year before. Because we've been on a thread of guys we went to college with who always want to know, how's the team look? What's the update? And so one day we're just like, let's do a podcast. So Luke and I did an episode, and then I said, Luke, I got a guy who I think would be a good addition to this because he does his homework and, you know, he does scouting reports. And so I was like, let me invite my friend Brent. So it's either the second or the third episode. We invited Brent Wahlberg to join just as a guest and did one. And then I texted Luke. I was like, he should just come back every time. And he's like, absolutely. So that's where we added Brent. And then James, my son, has been doing the intro for years. And we've got followers that have just kind of watched him grow up from this little, you know, baby voice. Like, I'm James and this is the Griz Fan Pod, to like participating in the conversations. And he's in his element when we have like Riley on, voice of Griz, Riley Corcoran. We'll have him on every year before the football season starts to kind of do a preview. And James is just eating it up. And then,
well, James has developed his own following.
Oh God,
I mean, I've seen people post pictures of James at Griz games, and
he's the most
just a video this week of him. Yeah,
because he's kind of a novelty. It's just like, oh, we met the Griz fan savant. You know, it's like he knows all the stats, and he's been a lot of fun. We were at the championship game in Frisco a few years ago, and we're walking through the hotel lobby, and someone goes, James, and I'm looking around thinking like, this must be like a friend's dad or something like that. No, someone from I think Haver. And they were like, oh, you must be Mike. James, we wanted to meet you.
That's awesome.
It's like, awesome. This is great. And so then, a couple of years ago, we added our buddy Kyle Sample to the mix. He'd been kind of filling in when one of us was gone. And so now there's 5 of us with James, and we had a lot of fun. We've kind of got some regular guests, Colter Nuanez, ESPN Radio, Skyline Sports. drop in once or twice a year. Andrew Schmidt's a former player who really stirs stuff up on Twitter for better or worse, and he'll drop in. So it's a lot of fun.
You guys just dropped a 3-hour episode.
Yep.
With Sammy Akim and Tyler Hobbs.
Yep. It was great. You know, one of the most rewarding things is like I said, we just did it because we wanted to present this feeling of having a beer with your buddies and talking about the game. Mm-hmm. And we've achieved that. But the people we hear from who are like, we love it because we don't live in Montana anymore. And it feels like a tie back to when I was going to school there, and my buddies would do that. We'd get together after the game and talk about what it was like. And one of the more rewarding things lately is we've developed a great following of former players and of current players' parents, which is always a double-edged sword. You don't want to say anything that offends anyone,
sure.
But they listen to it for like a pulse on the program because we're big fans of, we're in the QB club. We're big supporters. And for me doing the podcast, we record Sunday nights, and it's with everything I've got going on with council and work and all that. It's like the release. It's like my excuse to hang out with my buddies, invite them over. They're great with my kids. If Hannah wants to say hi on the microphone, they let her, and, they love Stace, and it's kind of the release. So I love doing it. And
you have the freedom. You don't have to be as polished as the media, and you can dig deeper into.
We make a point. We are not the media. We're not looking to break stories.
Yeah.
We've started doing a radio show this year as well. And that's tough because you can't swear and you have to have timed segments. And so
how many years have you guys been doing the pod?
I think 8. We started in the Stit years, and we passed the 150 episode threshold a couple of years ago.
Okay.
And so we only do them really during the football season. Then we'll do a few odd in the off season, talk about basketball and other things. But yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
Well, with that, thank you so much for being a Missoulian. You wear so many hats. You are actually supporting the city and making a difference, and we appreciate you.
Can I make a pitch real quick?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. I mean, I tell you, get involved in your community, find something and do it. I'm also the commissioner of Missoula Youth Football, which is like the board president.
MYF.
And I was kind of the people who led that board a couple of years ago reached out and like, hey, we just need a commissioner. We need a board president. It's not a lot of work.
You've got time.
I was like, all right, because I want that. That's a great program. And there's some guys that have come through that are really making a difference. I think that's helped build the foundation that Sentinel won some championships on, and that Big Sky is, building their program back because it's good. It's youth football. I would love it if we could find the next commissioner of Missoula Youth Football. So if you are interested, I will train you. I'll stay on the board. I'll do a transition. But I mean, we need volunteers because the only way programs like that work is if, community members step up and join. So reach out to me if you want to learn more.
To echo Steven's comment a minute ago, it's always great having a conversation with somebody born and raised here because it feels like there's less and less of us, Mike.
Yeah.
It's so rare now to find somebody
I think statistically it's no longer the majority in Montana, which is fine, because so many of the great people in my life weren't born here.
Right.
So I don't have
no issue with it. It's just odd that
it
used to be everybody was from here.
You feel the change over time. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, dude, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. It's been great, guys. Thanks for having me. And I love what you guys do. So thanks for doing it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.